Good evening, guys. So, in 2018, I was a pastor at a church called Living Oaks Community Church in Thousand Oaks, California. That's my community. On November 7th of that year, a Marine veteran dressed in all black, armed with a 45 caliber handgun, entered a popular hangout for college students and young adults. He opened fire. And he killed 12 people before turning the gun on himself, 13 dead in a matter of minutes. The Borderline Bar and Grill was 2 miles from my house. That morning, I was interviewed on a radio station, a local radio station, about the tragedy. And we prayed and we took calls and answered questions. And on the way home from those radio interviews, actually going to my office at the church, we saw billows of smoke rising from the hills right behind where my church building is. I was exhausted already, and we noticed that as the smoke rise, tragedy was on its way. The Woolsey Hill fires started just a few hours after that tragic shooting, burning more than 95,000 acres, destroying more than 1,600 structures, killing 3, and causing the evacuation of almost 300,000 people, my family included. As I got home that afternoon, rushed to go get my children, 2.5 hours to drive 1.5 miles, packed up what we could, and left, driving through what seemed to be the flames of that fire. And service that weekend at church was unlike any I'd ever helped lead. We surveyed the damage among us, the homes destroyed, the friends, the sons, the daughters, the neighbors murdered, killed just a few days before. In the midst of the grief, the pain, the tragedy, the confusion, one question continually surfaced: why would God allow all this evil? It's a challenge that's brought up often to the Christian. It's meant to show that there's an internal contradiction between who God is and the existence of evil. And I think that there's a good answer to this. Is there a contradiction? I don't think that there is. And that's what we're going to explore over the next few minutes right here on To the Point. I'm Jon Noyes for Stand to Reason. And I want to remind you, as I'm talking about this topic, it's heavy. Let me turn on the comments here so I can see them. Hey, Ashton, it's good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving, brother. Feel free to comment in the side. And after the I guess, I think I got about 10 minutes. I always say that. I probably got 20. I'd love to turn over to the questions on this side of my screen and try to answer them for you. Because this is a heavy topic, and I want to start in the place where I feel like we often start, but I think there's too much weight put on this. I'm going to offer what's known as the free will defense for the problem of evil. It's sometimes people are going to ask, couldn't God have created a world perfect and right where evil and suffering just didn't exist? And thinking about this as I was preparing this little talk here, I suppose he could, doing a thought experiment. I suppose he could, but that world would be totally and drastically different than the worlds that we experience, because there'd be one thing missing, not just evil, but with the giving up of evil, something incredibly important would be given up, and that would be moral freedom. We'd have to give up something good in order to get rid of evil. God has dignified man with the privilege of making significant moral decisions in his life, moral choices, and I think that's a really good thing. It makes life worth living in many regards. It makes valuable friendships with people and with God possible. Without moral freedom, we wouldn't be able to have those things. It's one of the things that actually separates us from the animals. And whenever I say that, I always think of John Wick, right? It's the rules that separate us from the animals. Well, in this case, it's the moral choices that we're able to make, moral freedom that separates us from the rest of the animals. It's something good, but God, but the good thing that God gave us all makes a very bad thing, evil, possible. I'm going to say that again because I think it's really important. Moral freedom is something good, but the good thing that God gave us all makes something bad possible, evil. So then the question I think is asked: why doesn't God just prevent us from doing evil, but still let us make morally free choices? It's a great question. I think we have to wrestle with it. But you see, what happens is moral freedom entails the possibility to do evil. That's what it means to be free, or to make these choices. Once you start pulling choices off the table, you're no longer talking about freedom. Removing the possibility would remove the freedom. In other words, so the first thing that I just wanted to briefly bring up, because this is a really popular response to the problem of evil, and that's the free will defense. And oftentimes they'll relate the free will defense to the ability to love, but I think we put too much weight on free will. I think we try to have it shoulder too much of the freight of this issue. Now, is it a defeater to the objection to the problem of evil? Absolutely, it is. But I think there's something better for us. I think there's something richer, which kind of brings me to our second and our main point. God uses the suffering, or at least can use the suffering that evil causes in our lives, in your life, and in my life, to produce something good. And that's really what I want to talk about over the next few minutes. The Apostle Paul, he demonstrated this with his entire life. He knew what suffering was. 2 Corinthians 11, we read that he was beaten. He was in danger all the time of death, whether he was in the city or out in the wilderness, or whether starving or facing 39 lashes 5 times. All of that, we read what Paul went through as he gives us his testimony. And in all of that, in the midst of all of that, in Romans, he says, "For I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that's to be revealed to us." You see, Paul, as he looks forward to heaven and to future glory, he understands that these sufferings pale in comparison to what awaits. And I think that there's good reason for God to allow pain and suffering, evil, in our lives. Pain and suffering, really simply put, just to the point, pain and suffering can serve a very important purpose. Take, for example, the pain. Here's a good example. The pain that I cause my daughters when I take them to the doctor to get a vaccine, for example. I know that word's super controversial right now, or for some reason, but I take them to the doctor and they need to get a shot for school or whatnot. I cause them a certain amount of pain and suffering, but you see the yield from that, the net yield from that pain and suffering is beneficial in the long term. It's good for them. And I know that the pain that they're going to have to endure is outweighed by the benefit. And sometimes pain serves a different good purpose in our lives too. So not only does it sometimes pale in comparison to what awaits us, like what Paul is saying, or pale in comparison to the good that comes from suffering the pain also serves as a warning to us. We don't often understand this, because the majority of us live normal, semi-normal lives, right? But just ask somebody who has, for example, CIPA disease. It's congenital insensitivity to pain with anhedrondis disease. These people who have CIPA, they can't feel pain. They've developed, or they were born with an insensitivity to it. So, for example, they could lean against a hot stove and not know it until it's too late, and they've literally burnt their hand off. They can suffer a broken bone and never know it. Picture like living life after coming home from the dentist with a numbed mouth. You sometimes bite your cheek, or you burn your mouth when you maybe go get some coffee too soon. Imagine living with that constantly. You see, pain serves as a warning to us. Ouch, I don't want to go near that. It helps us navigate the world around us. So there's just two kind of common sense reasons why God would want to allow pain and suffering. One, the benefit that comes from it, a shot, an inoculation, a vaccine. Two, it serves as a warning. But also, I want to talk about what the Bible teaches, because I think it's really important to see that there's reasons why God allows us to go through pain and suffering. We have more than the free will defense, in other words, when we're defending God, offering a theodicy, an answer to the problem of evil. The Bible teaches us that God can use pain and suffering in our lives for good. Romans 8 again, Paul says, God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him, according to those who are called according to his purposes. You see, if we take scripture seriously, and to the unbeliever, if you're an unbeliever right now, if you're a non-believer, you're non-Christian, if you're an atheist and you're watching this, I understand how ridiculous this sounds, but the cross is foolishness to the Gentile, to the Christian. It's a stumbling block to the Jew. It's not supposed to make sense necessarily to you right now. But the truth of the matter is God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him, according to his purposes. According to his purposes. One great example that we see this in the Bible is Joseph. We all know that story, from hopefully more than just the Broadway play, where he's got the brilliant technicolored coat, right? But he does have a beautiful coat, and he's also got his father's love, and his brothers are jealous of his father's love. And what do? Well, they end up, beating him and throwing him into a ditch. He ends up getting sold into slavery, living an awful life in an existence of hard labor. And then finally he works his way up to get into royalty's house, and he serves Potiphar, but then Potiphar's wife accuses him of adultery with her. And then there you go again, back into slavery, back into jail again, rising up through the ranks again. Finally, he gets to serve Pharaoh in the time of great need, where famine is crushing and closing in on the land, and you've got Israel running to Egypt for help. And you see a reunited Joseph and his brothers, and they don't recognize him at first. And we all know the story, right? And as Joseph confronts his brothers in Genesis 50, he says, as for you, Joseph's brothers, he says, as for you, you meant evil against me. He's talking about the evil deeds his brothers did for a long time ago to him. He's, as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. You see, not only does he say that good things can come from the evil, that good thing has come from this evil, that you meant this for evil, but God meant it for good. He also gives the reason why. God used the evil in Joseph's life to prepare him for the moment that he found himself in, basically saving the nation of Israel as he opened up the gates of Egypt, the food stores to the Israelites, saving them, a whole people group saved. And it started with evil, but God meant it for good, is what Joseph is saying. God also uses evil and suffering for sanctification. 2 Corinthians 4 says that these are but momentary light afflictions, producing in us an eternal weight of glory far beyond all comparison. And notice two things there. These are but momentary light afflictions. This too shall pass. Now, in somebody who's wrestling with evil and pain and suffering, if you right now are finding yourself in the midst of tremendous pain and suffering, that doesn't help. I know it doesn't help, and I'm so sorry that you're going through that, whatever it is. But it doesn't mean it's not true. Brett Kunkle says, don't confuse the moment with the story. Don't confuse the moment that you find yourself in with the entire story of your life. These are trials and tribulations sometimes for a very long time we feel that we're going through these things. But when you look ahead at what you know that things are going to pass, these hard times, especially when you apply to these things a heavenly timeline, a divine timeline, an eternal timeline, the glory that awaits us far outshines the amount of time that we're going to spend in pain and suffering here, even if it's an awfully horrid life. But there's something else Paul is saying here. These are but momentary light afflictions, but they're producing something in us that otherwise wouldn't be there. Paul is saying that these pains, these trials, these tribulations that we go through in day-to-day life are producing something in us that otherwise wouldn't be there, that we go through them and they're producing something. Mainly, they're preparing us to shoulder the weight of glory, to shoulder the heavenly rule. We have to go through these trials. Now, do I necessarily know why? But no, I don't. But my ways, God says, my ways are not your ways. My ways are higher than your ways. I don't understand everything that God does, but I know what the word says, and Scripture tells us that these things are true. We're told in James that he uses pain. God, he uses pain and suffering to bring about perfection. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance." That's crazy. It's doing something. It's not for naught. There's not like this angry God up there just watching and waiting for you to get yourself in trouble or causing these sufferings and these trials to come to your door so he can laugh at you. No, they're not for naught. They're doing something here. They're producing endurance in our lives, and then he goes on to say, "And let that endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." You see, God's using life's circumstances to shape us and to mold us into what he wants us to be. Now, I got to say something, and this is controversial. I understand this is controversial, guys, and it's hard to hear, but my prayer life changed a few years ago. When I found myself in trial, I had a newborn baby in the NICU, Phoebe. Very scary, very, very scary. She was in NICU. She contracted RSV when she was 1 day old, respiratory infection, and her oxygen saturation levels were falling like into the 70s. It was so scary. And she had to be hooked up to all these tubes. And my wife was staying with her in the NICU, thank God, because there was like a separate room. She could stay there. I was home with our firstborn, Eva, who I think was not even 2, and working full time. And it was just so hard, like, and struggling with this. Well, my prayer life changed. I stopped asking God. I mean, I kept asking him for healing, but I started focusing on what God would have for me in the moment. What is it that I can learn? Is there something there? And I learned endurance, how to stand in the face of trials and walk through them. Um, you know, and that leads to the next point here. That the trials of life, guys, they lead to something good. They build character in us. Romans 5:3-4, it says that, and not only this, but we also exalt. Again, we exalt in our tribulations, like Paul's saying that we celebrate in them. We exalt in our tribulations, knowing that tribulations bring about perseverance, and perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope, and a hope that does not disappoint. You see, they build in us a proven character. It makes us a veteran of the world. We're no longer a green recruit. We're that colonel or that commander in God's army as we go through the trials of life and we face them. You know, he builds he builds us up in character, and that not just that, but the perseverance that leads to proven character also leads to instilling in us a hope that does not disappoint, ultimately a hope to future glory. You see, everything leads to glory through the cross of Jesus. And when we have this worldview, I think we have a good reason to believe that there's good reason for the evil and suffering in the world. You know, also God uses evil to discipline and judge us and the whole world too. We see this in the examples of the flood, and we see this throughout the whole entire book of Judges. You know, again, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I think it's true. God uses the sufferings and the evil to discipline us and judge us. I wonder what that tells us about the current situation that we find ourselves here in the West. Maybe there's some judgment going on from God. He's allowing us to go through struggles, trials, tribulations, suffer some evils in this world. You know, but through all of this, God uses evil to point us to the need for a savior. You know, Jesus, he asked about the problem of evil, and when he asked about the problem, or when he was asked about the problem of evil, he didn't mention any of the things I've been talking about. He didn't mention the free will defense either. He said, or those 18 on whom the Tower of Siloam fell and killed them, do you think that they were worse offenders than all those who lived in Jerusalem? No, he says. Jesus says, no, I tell you, but unless you repent, you will all likewise perish. Notice, when asked about the problem of evil in the world, Jesus used the opportunity to warn the world of coming judgment. You know, C.S. Lewis put it this way. I love the way C.S. Lewis put it. He puts it, pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to arouse a deaf world. You see, the reality of evil points to the reality of God. And on the Christian view, there's no contradiction between the goodness and the power of God and the presence of evil. I think the Christian worldview does a great job explaining evil, actually, making sense of evil in the world. But I think that we can do better than even this. In the Christian worldview, something's being done about it. There's a solution. God's doing something about the problem of evil. There will come a time when God will remove every remnant of evil from his creation. He will restore perfect goodness to the world. You got to remember that our story isn't over yet. Remember, I said it earlier, don't confuse the moment with the story. You see, we find ourselves in a story that we haven't gotten to the conclusion. We know the conclusion, but we haven't gotten there yet. God has established a whole new world order with evil defeated forever in the kingdom here, but not yet. Matthew says that blessed, or Matthew 5:6, this is Jesus. Matthew reports Jesus saying, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied." We thirst and hunger and yearn for these things. And one day we will be satisfied. And some people, they want to have that happen today. And I understand that. I want it to happen today. But remember, though, when God deals decisively with evil, he's going to do a complete job. He's not leaving anything undone. Again, I turn to Lewis's words here. He says, "I wonder whether people who ask God to interfere openly and directly in our world quite realize what it will be like when he does. When the author walks on the stage, the play is over." You see, if God wiped out all the evil in the world tonight, right now, tonight at midnight, it's 6:22. So in 5.5 hours, if God just wiped out all the evil, 12:01 hits, evil deeds can never be isolated from the evildoer. Where would you be if God did that? Where would you be? You see, when Jesus came the first time, people they clamored, they wanted a conquering Messiah, and they got a suffering one. Now people they want Jesus meek and mild, and they're going to get the Lion of Judah when he comes. And this leads to really me trying to wrap things up here. One final thought about what God is doing about the problem of evil. Friends, God sent his son to die for evil men. Offering mercy instead of justice, so that we could be forgiven rather than condemned. God has dealt with the problem of evil. And now he's patiently waiting, giving men a chance, humankind, a chance to turn to him for forgiveness. Regarding the return of Jesus, like thinking about this, listen to Peter's words. This is 2 Peter 3. "The Lord's not slow about his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing for any to perish, but for all to come to repentance." You see, God is slow in his wrath and anger. He's giving us all a chance to turn to him. He's patient towards the sinners of the world, and he doesn't want any to perish. The door is still open. It's not quite yet 12:01, but it won't always be that way. God is going to close that door. Jesus says that "Come to me, all who are weary and heavily laden, and I will give you rest." Do you know why God hasn't dealt decisively with evil yet? Maybe it's because of you. Maybe it's because God's waiting for you. Maybe it's your neighbor or your mom or your dad or your best friend or the person in the cubicle next to you. Maybe it's for that person that lives across the street or you pass by in traffic every day. God's waiting. He's patiently. He's calling you. You see, so God has not only dealt with evil, he's solved the problem of evil. And when we start thinking about all these things in a cumulative case, if there's no God, and we didn't really get into this, it wasn't really the point of this, you're pitting atheism's answers versus the answers of a Christian worldview. But if there's no God, we have to give up the idea that evil even exists. Nothing is ultimately bad or deplorable or tragic or worthy of blame on a naturalistic worldview or relativistic worldview. Nothing's also either ultimately good or honorable or noble or worthy of praise if God doesn't exist. It's all lost in the twilight zone of moral nothingness, as far as I can tell. And again, I haven't offered an argument for that, so maybe that comment's not fair for me to be sharing here. You know, but also most people, if God came back right now, I don't fare well. If God dealt with evil decisively right now in this moment tonight at 12 o'clock midnight, a lot of people wouldn't fare well, but God is patient. It's interesting. As an atheist, when I used to bring this objection up to the Christian, and I was almost never met with real good answers, to be honest. Like, this was my nail in God's coffin. What I was looking for in my questions, if I wasn't just trying to, be an antagonistic person, I guess, in the conversation, if I wasn't just being antagonistic, I wanted, a God who takes evil seriously. That's why I brought the question up. I think we all do. I think we all want a God who provides a way to protect us from evil without taking away our moral free choices, right? We want a God who gives us an opportunity for mercy instead of simply just judging us for our own evil. We want a God who has a plan and of forgiveness and for completely transforming this world so that ultimately evil disappears. We want a God who does all of these things, but this is exactly what God has done. You see, even in my objection and even what I was looking for as an answer from the Christian, it's exactly what God has done. Just not yet. And it's unfortunate because oftentimes I think we lose that timeline. We want it now on our timeline. But God's slow to anger. God is slow in his moving. He's patient. He's long-suffering. He's kind. And he's just. And he's waiting. And this is exactly who God is and what he's done. He's provided these things for us. He's provided us an ultimate answer. He's taken evil away in an ultimate sense. Atheism's not the answer to the problem of evil. When you bring up the problem of evil as an atheist and get rid of God, you haven't gotten rid of the problem. You've only gotten rid of one of the possible solutions. God is the answer, and he's the answer in Christ, on a cross, on Calvary. God isn't simply the best solution. He's the only solution to the problem. And thinking about this even more, and I think Vodi Bakum is the one who brought this to my attention. Our question, it shouldn't be why God allows evil. What should amaze us and astonish us, and maybe the question that should come to our mind is why would God pay such an incredible price to rescue us at all? A world that's living in rebellion, that's sinning against him and his wonderful creation. So instead of wrestling with the problem of why God allows evil, I think it's a bigger and more difficult question. Why would he offer the rescue plan? That's a good question. It's something to ponder. But he has offered the rescue plan. Thank God, quite literally. So simply put, guys, at the end of this, oh my gosh, a half hour in, simply put, that the Christian worldview, it just simply has the best answer to the problem of evil. So thanks for watching. This is to the point, and now I'm gonna try to scroll through some of the questions. I see Harmony is on here with me, so maybe she can bring some of them up. Ashton said, "Hey, most of these stand to reason." Here we go, Ashton. Happy Thanksgiving to you all, my American friends. from a Canadian. Ashton, you just celebrated Canadian Thanksgiving, I think, right? Because Tim Barnett was telling us about that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. You had it. So I appreciate the well wishes and happy Thanksgiving. I'm excited. Tomorrow's my favorite holiday. I love Thanksgiving because um, it's like the holiday where we don't do anything. I mean, we cook, but cooking's fun for me. So like I'll cook a turkey and all the fixins and everything, and we have a bunch of people coming over. But it's a relaxing day. It's also the day in my family where we start Christmas music. So it's going to be a good season. And then Friday, if I have time, it's Christmas light day, meaning I get to put up all my Christmas decorations. So we have a bunch of traditions that start this time of year. So it's a great time for us as a family. So I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving. This is a good JR, man. This is a great topic. There's so much to say. I tried to be in 20 minutes. I went 10 minutes over, which is totally typical. It's a hard topic, but I think this is one of the most important ones that we need to wrestle with. The existence of God and the existence of pain, suffering, and i.e. evil in the world. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, man. I really appreciate it, JR. Let's see here. JR was amen. I'm glad you agree with me, JR. That's fantastic. I'll put this one up just because you're cool. LRFPV. You guys are the greatest YouTube channel out there. I've learned so much from you guys. Keep preaching the truth. Oh, praise the Lord. Thank you so much. I never know how these things go. All we have, I guess the way that you judge the success of videos is views, right? So it's numbers, and I'm not like a numbers guy. Like I'm not I don't really pay attention to how many people come to my church. I'm also a pastor, just so you guys know. I don't no longer pastor at Living Oaks Church. I left there to become full-time at Stand to Reason. But I started a small little teeny tiny church, and I'm a bivocational pastor with 3 of my best friends at this place called Soli Church, SOLI Church. And this is one of the most important topics for us to be wrestling with. And anyways, this is the stuff. This is where we do our wrestling. So I'm glad that you're learning from this. And at Soli, it's a small church. We never even take attendance, I guess. Like, we don't count how many people are in the seats. Is I guess what I'm saying. So I never know how good these videos are doing, but I'm glad that some people are gaining from them. That's my goal, man. My heart's there for that. Let's sort through at Stand to Reason. Let's see here. Any questions here? Yes, it's live. Let's see here. The Paladin, unrelated but quick thoughts on covenant theology versus dispensationalism. Oh man, that's like a whole nother video. Just transparently, I lean towards covenant theology as opposed to dispensationalism. I was saved in a dispensational church. I used to pastor at a church where the majority of the pastoral staff held to a dispensational position. So I think the conversation is really fun to have in its proper context. I don't want to be out there fighting with people about it. But I tend to lean towards covenant theology. And I like looking at the Bible, the biblical narrative, the true story of reality according to covenants. I think it makes sense. And yeah, so I don't really know where to even start on this. Maybe I'll do a full-on video with that topic in mind. Actually, you know who does probably a great job? I don't know for sure, but Mike Winger. I don't know if you ever go to Bible Thinker. Mike Winger is a really good friend of ours at Stand to Reason. He's a good friend of mine personally. And if anybody has done a phenomenal job on that topic, it would be Mike Winger. He probably did like an 8-hour video. No, not 8-hour, but probably 2-hour video on it. Awesome, Paladin. I appreciate your generosity on that. But yeah, Mike Winger is a great place to go. And Mike and I disagree. Well, I don't know if we disagree on that. I don't know if he's a dispensationalist or not. But yeah, there's so much to say on it. I just don't even know where to start. But it's a fun topic. Harmony, do you see any questions from any? All I see on from the platform, guys, just so you know, the only comments I get to see are from Facebook and YouTube. So there's another, I guess, Twitter, the little Twitter bird. I'm awful at social media. Thank God for Harmony, because she does an amazing job. Harmony is Stand to Reason's social media coordinator, I think is her title. And she's legit. Like anything you guys see that's good on social media, it's pretty much because she's doing her job really, really well. So I appreciate that. Jesus loves Enya. Man, how am I doing? I am doing better than I deserved. Deserve rather. I live an um, extremely privileged life. I love my life right now. I've got a family that I love dearly, an amazing wife, awesome kids, fantastic church, and I get to do my dream job, which is work with Stand to Reason and do these types of videos. We just had a huge conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you guys are watching and you want to get involved in something incredible, go to realityapologetics.com tonight and see if there's a conference coming to a town near you. We've got one in Georgia coming up, Augusta. We've got one in Dallas, and we've got one in Philadelphia coming up. And you do not want to miss this conference. I'm not saying this just because I'm speaking there. I am. I get to speak a bunch and have fun. Well, I say fun. I speak on suicide at these conferences. So I think it's fantastic because God, I think, is using it. But it's also just really hard. But these conferences are unbelievable. In Minneapolis, we had like 3,300 students or people, I guess, there. It was insane. It was just insane. And I say that not because for like, lifting ourselves up. It has nothing to do with us, but what God is doing in the youth. They're causing them to have a heart for Christian apologetics and really want to get trained, not just what to learn, but why to learn, why they, not just what they believe, but why they believe it. They want to be able to back their worldview up. And it's just great. It's a great experience. If you can ever get there, it's a 2-day conference and it's like 35 or 45 bucks. I mean, it's pretty cheap. I used to go before I was even at SDR on staff. I used to just go as like kind of a fanboy and just go talk with the guys and talk with Amy Hall. And she sets up a table, asks the apologist, and she literally sits in like the lobby of the church that we're at all day, Friday and Saturday. And you can ask her any questions that you want. And she'll have a conversation for 2 hours with you if she needs to. She's unbelievable. So, yeah. So also I do want to throw this. Oh, Harmony. Yeah. Thank you so much for this. Here's a question. Tips on finding a solid church. Oh, dude, it's so hard. So this is how I've done it in the past is if you go to Gospel Coalition, they have a church mapper. And I can't put a link because I can't find it right now, like with while doing this, but and for the most part, they don't totally vet my church is on there, and I'm not sure they vetted us necessarily, but you've got to send them some resources in order to get on the website and get some acknowledgement. So Gospel Coalition has a decent resource as far as a church, like a church finder. You plug in your zip code and it brings up a map and it'll show you some churches in your area. I would say visit the churches now. I mean, because of the pandemic, there's this thing, COVID-19. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's kind of affected the world. And churches, especially a lot of churches are now that otherwise wouldn't be, are now broadcasting their services live or doing it online at some point, loading them up. Go check them out. That's a great tool. While I don't think it's a substitute for actually physically attending church, it definitely is a good way. If you don't have a church, it's a good way you can check out like 4 or 5 a night. But like on Friday night, you can check out a couple churches and then Sunday morning, attend one, choose one to go to. Definitely listen to some messages, look at their websites, read their statement of faith, check out their fundamentals, and listen to the pastors preach. That's all. That's how I do it. That's how I've done it in the past with my family. And one piece of advice, if you want to know me honestly, once you get plugged in there, start serving right away. Like just dig in. Ask the people at the front door, hey, what opportunities are there for me to get kind of involved? Is there anything that I can get involved in? Take the pastor out to lunch. You'd be surprised how infrequent that happens. If you have questions about the church, ask them. I mean, I love it when somebody's checking out our church and they want to come and talk to me about it and they're willing to pay for lunch for me. I'm there, man. It's like, and then usually it forms a great relationship. So those are my tips for finding. I hope that helps you. Um, and yeah. Oh, how many? See, I told you, she's amazing. It's unbelievable. Find a church near you. It's a decent resource. It's not perfect, but it's a place to start. Let's see here. Also, I did want to mention this. Be sure to check out Stand to Reason University in January for I have a full course that's coming out on the problem of evil. It's going to be a 5-part, so 5 classes, 1 course, the problem of evil. And I dig into this stuff in a little bit more depth. Now, that said, it's still like considered a 101 class. I mean, there's so much to say about the problem of evil. It's one of my most favorite topics to talk about, and I look forward to someday teaching maybe you guys want to bring me out to your church to do a full on talk on the problem of evil, or multiple talks over the course of like 1 or 2 full days. I'd love to do that. And you can get in touch with, if you want to do that, make sure you go to the website, stand to reason, str.org training. And then you'll see me as one of the speakers, and you click on me, and there's ways to book me to come speak with you, get in touch with Darcy. So, but these guys at training.str.org is Stand to Reason Stand to Reason University, STRU. It is a phenomenal free resource. These are high quality, high production video classes for free that you can take. And then there's like quizzes after each one. And I haven't done as many as I probably should, but I've done a bunch of them, gone, watch the video. There's like why apologetics, tactics in defending your faith. Are the gospels reliable? Problem of evil's coming out. Greg just recorded, and he's in the final stages of the production process for atheism. I think that's coming out in a couple weeks. Maybe that's around the same time in the new year. But every quarter we try to deliver 2 new 5-part courses, and all the principals that Stand to Reason get to participate and make these incredible videos. They're so much fun. And again, our videographer, Greg Cash, he makes us look so much better than we are. They're really great. So check them out. And I'd love to know what you think about them too. They're a great resource. Training.str.org. Training.str.org, and they're free. Just sign up. And one of the best things about STR is that we're not going to Stand to Reason. We don't solicit you. Like, you sign up for this thing when you're not going to start getting like 1,000 things from us in the mail asking for your money. That's just not how we work. So feel free to, we take your information, your private information, seriously. So sign up for those. Oh man, let me get rid of this comment. Can I do this like this? Oh yeah, I can. Steve Van Kulen. Claiming Christianity is Steve's ministry. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Steve. But Steve Van Kulen is one of my best friends. He's amazing. He used to come to the church where I used to pastor, actually, and he saw the transition over from pastoring full-time to Stand to Reason, and we've partnered on a ton of stuff. If you want good resources, somebody to point you to good, solid resources, especially if you're looking for a good Bible, you want to go to Claiming Christianity. He has a YouTube channel, Steve Van Kulen. This is a perfect example of what we're trying to do at Stand to Reason, is support somebody like Steve. He's just blooming where he's planted. He started the YouTube channel, and he's just in his house. He's got a bunch of girls too. He's got 3 girls. So you could be praying for Steve and his 3 girls and daughters, and me and my 4 daughters. Man, it's like, oh my gosh, lots of girls when we get together. But yeah, go over to Steve's YouTube channel, Claiming Christianity, and he's got Bible reviews on the archaeology Bible, or keyword study Bible, or if you're just looking for a quality Bible, the R.L. Allen Bible, ESV study Bible. All these different Bibles are resources. He'll point you to quality ones, and you can kind of check it out in his half-hour review before you spend big bucks on some of these things. So Steve Van Kulen does a great job at Claiming Christianity. Great stuff. All right, let's see here. Are there any more? How am I doing here? How many? Let's see. Find a church. Stand to Reason. I already mentioned the university. It's going to be, you don't want to miss it. I'm going to leave that one up there because it's important. Tips on finding a solid church. Yes, it's live. I think we did it. I think we've gone through it. Harmony, I'm going to give Harmony like 35 seconds or so. If she sees any more questions that she'd like to hit up, I'll comment on them. But I do want to point you to Stand to Reason. So for your resources, str.org. We just created a brand new website within the last, I don't know, year and a half. It's state of the art. The search function's incredible. If you want to find out more about the problem of evil, I've written a couple blogs on it. Greg has written a bunch. I mean, all the guys really have. Or anything. If you have any questions about really any topic, there's great topical searches. And again, there's training.str.org is a great place to go to get equipped through video curriculum. So with that, guys, it's been 45 minutes. I think that's pretty good. It's been really fun. I do want to actually, before I go, just update you guys on. So this is the last of 6 monthly videos. So I was doing the last Wednesday of every month. Come the new year, you can look for some changes. We're going to be doing some interesting stuff with To The Point. I'm hoping to morph it into, I don't want to say too much because nothing's been decided, but I'm hoping to really morph it into a 15-minute video cast, but with a podcast twist, addressing current event in the news at the time it's there. So it'd be weekly. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to Stand to Reason. So, all right, here's one question. Then I'm going to go. I can't resist you guys because you're amazing. Richard, how do you address the problem with someone who wants a bumper sticker answer? It depends on the person, man. If they just want a simple answer to the problem of evil, they probably don't really want an answer. They're just bringing it up to kind of throw something in your face or put a little egg on your face or just kind of end the conversation. But if they bring up, oh yeah, well, what about all the evil? The best way to answer that is with a question. Like it's tactics, Columbo, right? What about all this evil? Well, what do you mean? Like, I'm assuming you're bringing up the problem of evil because you think there's like a contradiction between the existence of God and the existence of evil. Well, what is evil? Well, what do you think evil is? And that goes into a conversation. If he's looking for a bumper sticker answer, he's going to either have to abandon that or be happy with the fact that, maybe you've put a stone in his shoe. Maybe you've caused him to think as he walks away. But bumper sticker answers, if somebody in an elevator is going to mention, oh, I can't believe in God because of all the evil, my answer to him is going to be like, I can't believe in evil if there's no God. Something like that, something catchy, twisty. I hope that makes sense. You just kind of flip it, and it's all done in the hopes that you get them thinking a little bit. So when they walk away, they're limping in a good way, as Coco would say. Coco would say, you put a stone in their shoe, a little annoying pebble, get them thinking about stuff. So that one dude, you didn't like that response. I'm sorry, man. You can't please everybody, but you can please somebody. Bumper sticker responses I had. So hey guys, with that, I'm gonna get going. Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you all. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and come the new year, keep your eyes out for To The Point, and we're gonna be morphing it a little bit. So with that, guys, God bless you guys. Have a great New Year season and Christmas season. Can't wait to be with you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.